So I think that non-duality is the most beautiful subject there is. I'm totally in love with the subject and get so excited talking about it. I think it's so beautiful to really collapse into what's happening. And in what's happening, in this moment, it becomes apparent that there's nobody having an experience here. There is wholeness, boundlessness having an experience. There's nobody that's been having a separate experience. This has been one energy's expression. This has been life's expression, which is totally full and complete. It never felt incomplete. It's so creative life that it's created humans that feel incomplete. It creates a human that over time it's developed self-awareness, and through developing self-awareness and language, it began to believe that it was a thought. It was something in time. And then there became an energy in the body that expressed that. I am a good person, I am a bad person, I am a right person, I am a wrong person, I am a tall person. And the way that our language works is in comparison, is in comparing to another object. So, I am good in comparison to this person, I am bad in comparison to that person, I am right in comparison to that person. Without a comparison, we wouldn't be able to define ourselves. I am happy compared to what I was yesterday. I am sad compared to what I was yesterday. I would like to be more happy in the future. Everything we think about ourselves, when you really look at it and really analyze it, it's all about seeking and comparison. What we're seeking to be. We identify with these certain characteristics, with these certain behaviors, and then we seek to complete those behaviors. So if you identify with sailing a boat around the world, then you seek to complete that. If you identify with being powerful, then you seek to complete that. If you identify with being lazy, then maybe you seek to become less lazy. If you identify with being a victim, you'll seek an abuser, or you'll seek to not be a victim. Khaleesi's just barking, I have to let her in. Nope, she's satisfied again. She's so funny. She's so beautiful. She sometimes just likes me to have the doors open all the time so she can go in and out. Not aware that there might be heat inside and cold outside. So, why isn't the door open? She's becoming so well behaved. It's amazing. She's 4 now and she's just so good. She just, when you get a dog into a routine, they get into conditioned behaviour. So now when I'm walking along the road with her, I often walk along the road around here without a lead on. And when a car comes, I point her to the side of the road, and then I stand with her so she can't run out in front of the car. And now, as soon as she hears a car, she goes to the side of the road. It's so cool. Okay, what was I saying? So if you seek to be the good person, then you'll always be seeking out that. You'll be seeking out to show that you're good. And you'll be demonizing other people to show that you're good. You'll be putting other people down and holding yourself up higher. And it doesn't mean that you don't do it generally. Like if somebody smashed into your car, you need to define that that's not good. Or if somebody's stolen all your money, then that can be defined. But it's when you identify, it's when this energy identifies, this is who I am, and the world really is seen like that. That you are good and they are bad. Hang on. In she comes. You're not going out again, Nisi, if you come in. You're not going out again. Okay, come on in then. Wow, you ate it all. That's amazing. And it's amazing what seeking does and how it veils everything. So on the surface you might feel like you like to be social and you like to go out, but often if that's investigated, like the socializing and wanting to go out and wanting to connect and wanting partners, when it's really investigated, deep down you feel a deep sense of loneliness, and that loneliness is always looking outside. And then when you get company, when you socialize and when you're with people and when you have a partner, that feels fulfilled. So it's like great pleasure. It doesn't mean that bodies can't be social bodies, but it's just investigating what's there and what the seeker does. It's so amazing the way it plays. It's so sneaky. And if you want to see yourself as a good person, then even if you're acting badly or being a pain in the butt, you'll still seek out what the other person's done, and that you're a good person, they're a bad person. So you'll always be looking in that light. If you're wanting to be successful at work, and there's always this drive for being successful at work, there's more than likely deep down this lack there, this sense that you're not enough if you don't do that, that this adds to you in some way. And it's so strong, it's not even, like I say it in thoughts, but it's not even something that you can think about. You can't even think about it. It's like an impulse in the body. And it's so strong to go out and get or do. Be something, be something. You wouldn't even be conscious of it. What the person is conscious of is what it's going for, the woman it's going for, or the object it's going for. It's never conscious of what's underneath that there's discomfort or anxiety. When it gets into this subject, maybe it becomes more conscious of that, because the teacher points it out. And in a way, that's an important part. Even though there is nobody that awakens, the person eats itself, and part of the way that it gets deconstructed is that these patterns become really clear, and then the patterns stop acting themselves out. The reason that they act themselves out is because they're unconscious. When it's seen really clearly that seeking for the lover or seeking for the friends or seeking for the food is never going to complete you, it simply brings pleasure, and pleasure's okay and you can move towards pleasure, but it only brings pleasure, then that energy begins to die. The illusion can only carry on while it's hidden. When it comes to light, it can't carry on, and then it's not the person that awakens. Awakening simply is already there, but as that person begins to collapse in, then it's seen as it is. That this is stillness expressing itself in movement. That this is that amness, and that amness is everywhere. Like that sense of being is everywhere and everything, and it's experiencing itself, but through these bodies. It's only this energy of the seeker and the separate entity which creates this feeling of being inside the body. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. All suffering comes from seeking. And it's not about you becoming not a seeker. You'll become depressed if you try to not be a seeker. While you're there, that's what you do. You seek. It's like telling a rabbit that it's not allowed to hop. While the seeker is there, that's what it does. It seeks. So it'll seek for this subject. It will seek for friends, lovers, money, whatever it is. You can never awaken, because who are you if you're not that seeker? I am Lisa and I am tall. The reason that that person defines itself as tall is because it's got to define itself as something in order to look for something else. That's not true. That's not who you are. That person appears in this, the character appears in this, but that's not the actual experiencer. And there can be a recognition that that person is only an appearance and not a separate entity. And then the energy later on after that normally collapses of seeking, of that constant looking in time for satisfaction. All that discomfort that you feel in the body, that exhaustion, comes from the layer upon layer of the seeker. It's so exciting. So what is it now that looks? What is it now that hears? What is it now that feels? Don't look for an experience. It's not in experience. It's there. It's experiencing it. It cannot be seen, yet it is seeing, yet it is hearing, yet it is looking. But it cannot be grasped. The seeker can't turn around and look at it. The seeker's an experience appearing in it. Everything you think about yourself is seen. So you've got this person in the body and it feels like I'm this person and I choose and I'm behind the eyes and I move my attention. Oh, she's saying going to feelings. I'm moving my attention. It goes into feelings. But notice that that person that feels like it's in there, that feels like it's choosing and experiencing, is being experienced. It's being experienced. That's so exciting. It's such a different way from living. And in a way, this is activism. This is the social activism that so many seekers want. Like, this is the way that society changes, by the collapse of living in this separate reality. Okay, so if anyone has any questions. Hey, Jessie. Nobody's got any questions. That's okay. So if you ask me, you have to ask me. I can see there's people asking me on the YouTube chat, but that's not how I read it. You have to friend me on Skype, which is Lisa Cairns 12, and write to me on there. It's too hard for me to try and look at the questions in the chat. So Michael says, would you describe the me as a problem addict? Sure, that's one of its characteristics, but that's not its only characteristics. It's also addicted to sex, it's addicted to food, addicted to friends, addicted to work, addicted to success, addicted to money. And the reason that it obsesses about problems is because the reason that we began to talk as humans and communicate talk and communicate as humans was, sorry, I'm just getting confused. The reason that we began to talk and communicate was because it helped with our survival. So we could recognize a problem. So the problem would be there wasn't enough fish, or the rain washed away the soil and the houses were falling down. So we could communicate about a problem and we could work out a way to fix it. So you could say the origin of language and the way we speak and communicate was about problem solving. And that's what it was for. But then as we began to identify and believe we were someone, we began to obsess about fixing ourselves and fixing our life and happiness. You know, before we spoke as humans, we didn't have any idea about happiness, so we didn't avoid any experience. We didn't want to be happy. Khaleesi, my beautiful, beautiful dog, who I'm so in love with, she has no desire to be happy because she doesn't know what that means and she has no sense of it. So every experience is welcome. But then as we began to speak and think, we began to look at our experience and we said, okay, now I feel happy because I'm eating ice cream and I want to always feel that sensation of happiness. And this is where the seeker begins to play, always in that game. So I'm sitting here listening to Lisa and, oh, it's a little bit cold, I want it to be warmer, or there's no sunshine, or it's raining, or I want to eat something. I don't feel happy. Why am I not feel happy? Let her look into the camera. If she just looked in the camera. And the seeker's always thinking about its own experience. Khaleesi never thinks about her own experience. That is just life happening to her. But she can never know herself like a human can. Even though she's liberated, she's free, she can never know herself like an identified human, an identified and then a waking up human can, because of that illusion that appears. Then when you wake up, you know what you're not, and therefore by that you know what you are. Whereas Khaleesi never has that dynamic. She just is. So freedom is always the movement from being this person to that boundlessness, what you always were, but the intellect carries on, so you can still think about problems. So the separate self is addicted to problems, but not because it's bad or wrong or this dirty devil ego. It's just because that's what it was designed to do. And so then when identification happened, the person got fixated on its experience, on having a good experience. That's why we have people always competing about experiences and trying to be the richest, because trying to be the most developed or whatever it is. Because we believe we are something. Okay, any more questions? I can't grasp that what I experience, everything, is what the observer is experiencing. How can there be no experience of the observer? Correct. Well, because experience is separate. Experience implies that something's experiencing it. So all there is experiencing. So you can't experience the observer. Who would? Who would experience the observer? All there is observer looking now. It's observer talking, observer seeing. But you can't find the point or the location of that observer because the observer isn't different from what it sees. So the seeing and the seen is the same thing. I think I've bottomed out. This is from Scott. Bookshelves filled with books on spirituality, from Hung Pu to Nisargadatta, loads of meditation retreats, meditating much the day, living by myself in nature, constantly questioning who I am, and now I'm tired and still the mind gives trouble with thoughts of lack. Run out of moves. Thanks, Scott. Well, how long have you been doing that, Scott? But yeah, of course you run out of moves because you never get there. You is an appearance happening in that freedom that's always there. So you aren't ever going to get there. But this is about the energetic collapsing back into itself, its honesty. Often when we're seeking in spirituality, we're seeking for a new story to live by, and we're seeking for a new person to be. And this is about a collapsing in to what's ever happening. And even in spirituality, we don't want to do that. We still want to seek. We don't actually want to feel the pain of that seeking energy that's not fulfilled. So that loneliness that most of us feel, would rather run towards relationships or go on the computer or on Facebook. And even when you meditate, I'm sure you're most probably using some technique to meditate, trying to avoid what actually the experience is. You're trying to use some technique in order to get somewhere. And this really is being totally honest and genuine and falling back into the experience. And lately I've been talking about moving your attention onto the feelings in the body. But that one that moves its attentions onto the feelings isn't the one that wakes up. But by doing that, I'm trying to make it clear what that seeker is doing, how that seeker is always trying to avoid experience. And actually, when that seeker doesn't try to manipulate it or move away or run away from it, then the energy dissipates or a change happens. But it's not actually that seeker that's doing it because it never existed. And I'm not talking about the seeker doing it in the hope that one day it will become free. Normally, by the time that seeker is prepared to look at actually what's happening, it's exhausted, it's tired of trying to run from what it is. This is total acceptance of all the suffering, of all the seeking that's going on. Conduted. I don't know what that says. So Jessie says, not a problem, but not a question, but I saw so clearly that the brain is conduit, full stop. Conducted? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So Lisa Cairns 12, if people want to call in. I can see people were asking how to do that. Lisa Cairns 12. So knowing this is to consciously experience the experiencer. You can't know this. It's when the clouds pass, it's seen. That's part of the awakening. And then there is this collapsing of this separate energy that's holding amness inside the body, because everything is that emness, that beingness, that aliveness. Everything is self. You think that, so there's this amness, and then this amness identifies with things, with people, with ideas, and you think you're inside here, and your amness belongs inside here, but that sense of being that's always been there is actually everywhere. It doesn't belong to anyone. Everywhere and nowhere. Lawrence Burnett test. I got your test. Whoopee. So I have no questions, which is nice. None. So Keith says, do you think you have to be seeking to listen to your talks? Would someone who's no longer seeking be motivated to listen to you? Sure. Sure. I think that people that are no longer seeking can listen just to the joy of it. I don't really tend to listen to other speakers, but maybe because I'm a speaker myself, I like. But recently I was watching a video of Gangaji. She has such a beautiful energy and such a lovely voice. When I was a seeker, I always went to male teachers because there wasn't the possibility to go to female teachers. There was all male teachers at that time, and Gangaji came to London once, I think, when I was living in London seeking. But when I was in India, there was never female teachers there. It was all male teachers. And so I don't really know the female teachers that are out there. So recently I decided to look some up. And Gangaji I knew of, and in the past I used to find her a bit too spiritual. I had an ego against that. Like I'd be like, I wanted to rebel, and she was too clean cut for me. But I don't mind now. A lot of the women seem like they're quite clean cut, and they're speakers. And I like the cheeky monkey. I was born in the year of the monkey. And I was always called a monkey growing up, Miss Monkey. As well as my parents also called me this Lisa Pizza Pudding and Pie, which God knows what that means. But when I did this Osho workshop once when I was younger, this is, when I was like 25 or 26, you had to, before you went in, you had to write down your nickname. And I had no idea why we were writing it down, but I just wrote down Lisa Pizza Pudding and Pie. I still get called it. And then the whole of the workshop, everyone had to call me Lisa Pizza Pudding and Pie. Funny enough, I really like pizza. I don't eat it that much because I tend to eat more healthier. Every so often I treat myself, and if I don't treat myself, it's pizza. I do enjoy pizza. Oh, and chips. French fries I enjoy as well, and potato chips. I remember Ramesh once, this lady was interviewing him while I was there, and she said to him, after she'd asked him these deep, vital questions, she said, "And what is your favourite what is your favourite food?" And straight away he's rocking on his rock chair, very serious face. "Pizza!" He goes, "Pizza, of course. What else? Pizza." Couldn't be anything else. He was always very matter of fact. Yeah, so I was talking before, there's no questions, so I'll just go off on a rant about female teachers. And it's interesting looking them up, because the female teachers obviously speak a lot more about feelings, because obviously females apparently scientifically have a lot more feelings than men. And also the way that men are conditioned in our society to not talk or feel feelings. And I think it's a really good thing, because as a speaker you always attract the opposite sex. You can go to any talk and you'll notice that if a male's giving a talk, there will be a lot more females in the audience. And then if a female's giving talks, you'll have half and half. And then I know that sounds crazy that you'll only have half and half, but there's more females into spirituality and this subject than there is men. A lot more females. So when you have half and half, that means really you're getting more males coming. And I think that it's to do with sometimes and often you fall in love with your teacher, so you often pick the opposite sex, or there's that element of falling in love or something. And maybe it's easier from the opposite sex because it doesn't feel like too much competition or something. You don't want to compete against them so much. But not all the time. It can also just be a falling in love, non-romantically. And so by that, I think it's really good, because I think that if all the female teachers are speaking a lot more about feelings, I think it's good for the women, but I think it's also good for the men, because I think a part of this waking up process, particularly for men, is becoming really honest to what you feel. Often men are about action or movement or doing something, but becoming really honest to what's actually happening, rather than just acting out the game of what you want. So, but I can imagine it also puts a lot of men off. They're like, ugh, ugh, all this feeling talk. What do you feel? I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's good. It's not happening, so everything's good. There is no body, so everything's good. It's the flow. Everything's good. And the body can't move. Everything's good. But what do you feel? I feel fine. I am fine. What do you feel in your body? Fine. You don't feel tension? No. I'm doing an impression of men. Not all men. I'm not trying to put you down, guys. But just an impression of a lot of what I come across. And you might have noticed it on Ustream when I ask guys how they feel. I don't feel anything. I'm fine. Because they for so many years have been told they're only allowed to feel anger or falling in love with a woman, and all other emotions aren't acceptable. And so they begin to really cut down and just live up in this area, so the body just numbs out. So to them, they can interpret that as peace, stillness, but it's not actually. It's cutting off. And so coming back in touch with the feelings is a really important part to that. What the body actually feels. And then sometimes, after working with a guy, after a while he'll be like, actually my body feels tense, even though I've been looking at him, he's been like, it takes weeks, and then suddenly he's like, oh, I feel a little tense. Oh, do you now? Right. I'm such a sloucher, so every time I sit down I always have these bra straps or straps of whatever top, you see, like they fit when I stand up, but when I sit down it's like If you could see the way I'm sitting, I'm so unelegant. I was never designed really to be a female. I was not really designed either to be a male. You know, in old civilizations, they used to have 3 genders. They used to have male, and they used to have female, and then they had another gender which wasn't defined, which I think is super cool. So that gender could be a woman that dresses like a man and behaves like a man, or a man that dresses and behaves like a woman. It could be somebody, I forget the name of it now, that doesn't associate with either gender. It could be with somebody that feels like a man and a woman. So they had 3 genders. So when I was at university, I studied it for a while. I forget the name of the book. It was like 3 genders or something. And we had it in Europe, but I think we wiped it out first in Europe. And then I think when they went over to America, they discovered 3 genders and they wiped it out there. And Thailand wasn't conquered. And even though it's mocked a lot and taken the mickey out of, but in Thailand, they still kind of have 3 genders, even though with this integration and change and everything, it's kind of mocked and laughed at, but they have what we call and laugh at as ladyboys, which isn't funny at all. It's totally normal that you might be born as a man but feel like a female. That's a normal thing, but our society is so repressive of it and doesn't allow that to be expressed at all. And I think actually when I come across men and women and do these talks, I do think that sometimes people that are suffering the most are like men that have a very strong feminine side, or females that have a very strong masculine side, because they've been told and grown up in a society and it's been like, you have to be like that or you have to be like this, and they've struggled to find their place. Like I don't really have a desire to have children and to get married. I've never had that desire. Maybe when I was really young I had a desire for children, because I remember at like 9 or 10 playing with a doll, but as I got older I didn't have that desire like my friends did, and I'm treated like I'm crazy or insane in society, like because even though I live in one of the most advanced, well, maybe not the south of France, but I come from London, just outside London, which is maybe one of the so-called advanced cities in the world, even more advanced than a lot of the cities that I've been into America socially. And even there, it's when I went to a Ilango, he just calls repetitively and then covers up my whole screen. So I went to this Hindu, and I was called autistic. So, and the ladies gossiped about me behind my back because I was the only one there that didn't have the urge to marry. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have the urge for kids, and I was a vegetarian stroke vegan. And they literally seriously thought that I was autistic, or on the autism scale, because we haven't got a place for it in our society. So they're like, what is wrong with her? A lot of men that I come across don't believe me. If I go into relationships, they don't believe it. And it has a funny effect on men. Men don't know how to deal with it. They're so used to women wanting to get married and to have kids. And I know it's hard for my parents in front of their friends. I mean, this is how bizarre it is, the way we set up the genders. But I think it's easier for a woman to be more masculine than for a man to be more feminine. I think it's worse in our society for a man to be more feminine. I think this is totally unacceptable. So then if you grow up and you're trying to not be that because you don't think it's acceptable or lovable, and you're always being told you're not allowed to be that, then of course your sense of self is going to become very negative and have a lot of suffering. You're going to always feel like there's something wrong with you, like you're disgusting or bad or not lovable. And it's not true at all. At all. And it also becomes difficult in relationships because, so if you're a really feminine guy, like a lot of women don't know how to handle that. They've had no role images of that. So therefore they might try and make the man more masculine, or they might love it as well. And also for a female, if she's more masculine being in a relationship, the guy doesn't know how to deal with it. So often they feel demasculated or not strong enough. So they try to be stronger. It's so crazy because we haven't got those images. We've got more acceptability of a woman now being more masculine. The third gender. But I think we killed it in Europe by, I think it was Christian Church that killed it. We don't even have record or history of it, that we had that in our society, or very little of it. Anyway, a nice little rant by Lisa. So, do we have any more questions? Elango is desperate to speak. Hi,